So today we are talking about the Boston Massacre. Now, why this is such an important topic is because it's really the pivotal point that changes the Stamp Act and the Township Act into a difficult battle for independence. This action right here is what brings so much animosity towards the British. It happens March 5th, 1770, and in Boston at the moment, it's a little dicey. We just had the Stamp Act come and go, and the Township Act come, and in some places sticking a little bit longer. But these were unfair taxes that Boston felt like was inappropriate to be paying. They didn't feel that it was necessary for them to pay for this if they weren't able to have representation in Parliament. They saw it as wrong to be able to charge somebody a tax such as that and not to have any representation or say-so in any matter. So, the people took to the streets. And right out of the State House of Boston, a group of men, Bostonians, showed up and started getting quite angry with the redcoat British soldiers that were standing outside the State House. They began yelling and arguing. And that escalated higher and higher until a large crowd had showed up. And they began throwing snowballs, ice, stones. Some of them had clubs that they used to beat ropes at the docks that they were now waving at the soldiers. All of a sudden, with some of the colonists yelling, "We bet you won't fire. We dare you to fire." All of a sudden, a shot rings out. Bang. Continually, bang, another one, bang, another one. And that's where we have the Boston Massacre. Now, the critical question that we're going to be asking during this is, was this self-defense in the realm of the British? Were they simply protecting themselves from a mob that was after them? Or was this an unexcusable killing? A complete travesty on the American people and a just cause to bring up independence. Now, to get a better in-depth look at the massacre itself, we're going to look at a couple key aspects of it. I'm going to bring up a couple here, but to you guys, we have primary sources from the actual people that were involved that you guys are going to look at and answer questions regarding what was happening during the night there. Can you give an accurate representation of what happened during the event? Now, if we look at it, we know for fact 6 are dead, 4 were at the scene, 2 were afterwards. Another fact that we know is colonists were throwing things. This is accounted on both sides. And were also insulting the British. So, along with the primary sources and the facts that we know, what I'm going to ask you guys to do is to look through your primary sources and begin to prepare for an argument. We are going to be the judge in this situation. We're going to be answering, should the British be found guilty or innocent of murder? We have enough on each side. We'll discuss that in a bit, but at this time I want you guys to go into your primary sources and see what information you can dig up about the Boston Massacre. At the documents, we're going to go over a couple different things on where we can see the innocent or guilty side. On the innocent side, a lot of you guys probably pulled from Captain Prescott. Looking at a lot of it, he's stating explicitly how the colonists were not acting peacefully. They were throwing things. They were swinging clubs. They were yelling at his men, fire. It's hard to be put in a right mindset. So that pushes a little bit towards the innocent side. Another one that we can go through is the commotion that was started. So it's been stated that the church bells sent more men out. And why that happened was because if you had church bells ring back then and it wasn't a day, of church, it usually meant that there was a commotion going on in the town, which could mean most likely then a fire. Now, if you had a fire go up, you're going to have a lot of men go out and try to help. And with all those men rushing out there during a riot that's already taking place, it can lead to some issues. It can lead to people thinking that there's going to be a big problem on their hands and they have to fix it. Now, if we go over to the guilty side, we see two main points that we can look at. One, they were never instructed to fire, but they did anyway. Now, the key aspect with this is that if they were asked to fire, then it would have been seen as a retaliation. It would have been seen as an order from an officer, and in a sense, part of it's taken away because the officer would have been the only one found guilty. On the other end, no one grabbed or beat the British soldiers. Nobody was reaching and trying to take them away and rip them out and trying to hurt them. They were yelling, they were throwing things, but they were not grabbing on. They were keeping their distance. So, looking at both of these, we have to make an argument as historians to what we believe was the actual call for this. Was it innocent or was it guilty? And I'm going to show you guys how to make kind of that historical argument coming right up. Okay, so as we continue, we need to know how to use this formula to come up with a thesis. So, how I would do it is you first want to start off with your claim. Now, personally, if I was looking at this argument, I could say something like, I believe that the British soldiers should be found innocent. Why? That's where I go up to my two claims of evidence. Evidence 2, which is my less strong offer, right? And my evidence 2 would be the fact that these men were egging on the British soldiers to fire. Evidence 1, this wasn't a peaceful group. They were throwing stuff. They were causing mass panic in the soldiers. And then the counter argument would be the other side of the argument. So that would be what would state that some people believe that the British soldiers were completely guilty for the terrible crimes they had against the people of Boston during the Boston Massacre. So when you state that, then you're able to go back and say, however, I believe, or even taking out I believe works even better. However, because this was not a pleasant group, but actually a riot, and because the people were egging on the citizens to fire, and then that's where you have a little bit of an explanation at the end. So you can put right here, that caused a situation that the British wouldn't be able to handle. Therefore, and that's where you have your claim, the British should be found innocent of the crimes of murdering rioters at the Boston Massacre. Now, this is something we will use the rest of the semester in order to come up with historical arguments to difficult historical issues. So make sure that you guys write this down, get an idea, and work with it.